The autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet as Marcus and David walked across the university campus, their breath visible in the crisp October air. For 15 years, they had been inseparable, from building treehouses in Marcus's backyard to surviving high school together and now navigating their junior year at Princeton. Their friendship was the kind that seemed unbreakable, forged through shared dreams, late-night conversations, and an unspoken understanding that they would always have each other's backs. That was before Elena Castellanos walked into their advanced literature seminar. She entered the classroom like poetry in motion, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. When she spoke during the discussion on Gabriel Garcia Marquez, her voice carried the subtle melody of her Colombian heritage, and both Marcus and David found themselves leaning forward, captivated not just by her beauty, but by the intelligence that radiated from every word she uttered. Marcus, with his sandy brown hair and easy smile, had always been the more outgoing of the two. He possessed the kind of natural charisma that drew people to him like moths to a flame. David, quieter and more introspective, with dark eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, was the thinker, the one who noticed details others missed, who could read between the lines of both books and people. After class, both friends found excuses to linger near Eleanor's desk. Marcus struck up a conversation about the magical realism assignment, his wit and humor making her laugh in a way that sent electricity through the air. David, meanwhile, offered thoughtful insights about the cultural context of the literature. They were studying, his depth of knowledge clearly impressing her. For weeks, this delicate dance continued. Marcus would invite Elena to campus events, charming her with his spontaneity and zest for life. They would attend football games together, where his enthusiasm was infectious, and she would find herself swept up in his energy. David, on the other hand, spent hours with her in the library, their conversations flowing from literature to philosophy to dreams about the future. In those quiet moments between the stacks, surrounded by the wisdom of ages, Elena felt a different kind of connection, one that spoke to her soul. Neither friend spoke to the other about their growing feelings, but the tension was palpable. Their usual easy banter became strained, punctuated by awkward silences when Elena's name came up. They began competing in subtle ways. Marcus would mention the concert he was taking Elena to, only for David to casually drop that he and Elena had spent the previous evening discussing Neruda's poetry until midnight. Elena, for her part, remained, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between the two friends. She genuinely enjoyed both of their company, appreciating Marcus's ability to make her laugh until her sides ached, and David's way of making her think about the world from entirely new perspectives. In her mind, she was simply forming two beautiful friendships with remarkable young men who happened to be best friends themselves. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in November. Marcus had planned to ask Elena to the winter formal, having bought her favorite flowers and rehearsed his speech a dozen times. He arrived at the library where she usually studied, only to find David already there, sitting across from her at their usual table. Elena's face was flushed with excitement as David showed her something on his laptop screen, a short story he had written, inspired by their conversations about magical realism. "Marcus!" Elena called out, waving him over with genuine warmth. "David just shared the most incredible story with me. You have to read it." But Marcus saw only David's satisfied smile and Elena's animated expression as she praised his friend's work. The flowers in Marcus's hand suddenly felt heavy, his carefully planned words dissolving on his tongue. He mumbled an excuse about forgetting something and fled the library, leaving behind not only his chance to ask Elena to the dance, but also the first crack in a friendship that had seemed unshakable. That night, both friends lay awake in their respective dorm rooms, staring at the ceiling and wondering if a girl, no matter how wonderful, was worth losing a brotherhood that had defined their lives. The next morning brought an uncomfortable confrontation that had been brewing for weeks. Marcus found David in their usual spot at the campus coffee shop, hunched over his laptop, with dark circles under his eyes. The familiar scene felt foreign now, charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with the approaching winter storm. "Outside, we need to talk," Marcus said, sliding into the chair across from his best friend. His voice carried a weight that made David look up from his screen, immediately recognizing the seriousness in Marcus's usually cheerful demeanor. David closed his laptop slowly, as if buying time. About Elena, it wasn't a question. They both knew this moment had been inevitable since that first day in literature class, when they had both felt something shift in the air around her presence. "Yeah, about Elena." Marcus's hands wrapped around his coffee cup, seeking warmth that seemed to have nothing to do with temperature. "I know you have feelings for her, David, and I know you know that I do too." The words hung between them like a bridge neither wanted to cross. For 15 years they had shared everything: secrets, dreams, fears, even girls they had crushes on in high school. But this was different. This felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one step forward would change everything forever. David removed his glasses and rubbed his tired eyes. "She's not just some girl, Marcus. He struggled to find words that could capture what Elena meant to him. The way she challenged his thoughts, the way her laughter made him believe in magic again, the way her presence made him want to be a better version of himself. "I know exactly what she is," Marcus interrupted, his voice rising slightly before he caught himself and looked around the coffee shop. "You think I don't feel the same way? You think this is just some casual thing for me?" The hurt in Marcus's voice cut through David like a blade. He had always been the more analytical one, prone to overthinking every situation, while Marcus wore his heart on his sleeve. But now, seeing the genuine pain in his friend's eyes, David realized that Marcus's feelings ran just as deep as his own. "So what do we do?" David asked quietly. "Because I can't just step aside, Marcus, not this time." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying his friend's face. They had been through everything together. David had been there when Marcus's parents divorced, holding him as he cried in the empty house. Marcus had sat by David's bedside when he had been hospitalized with pneumonia their sophomore year of high school, making terrible jokes until David smiled despite his fever. They had been each other's constants, the unchanging elements in a world that seemed determined to shift beneath their feet. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, "but we can't keep pretending this isn't happening. It's killing our friendship, and Elena's starting to notice something's wrong." Indeed, Elena had begun to sense the tension between her two friends. The easy camaraderie she had initially admired was replaced by stilted conversations and meaningful glances she couldn't quite decipher. When she asked David about it, he had brushed off her concerns with vague mentions of stress from midterms. When she mentioned it to Marcus, he had changed the subject so abruptly that she felt a chill of unease. "What if we tell her?" David suggested suddenly. "What if we're honest about our feelings and let her choose?" Marcus considered this, turning the idea over in his mind like a stone he wasn't sure he wanted to throw. "And then what? The one she doesn't choose just, what? Pretends to be happy, watches from the sidelines as his best friend builds a life with the girl he loves?" "Maybe," David said softly, "if it means preserving our friendship and giving her the choice she deserves." They sat in silence for a long moment, watching students hurry past the window with their books clutched against their chests, preparing for exams that suddenly seemed trivial compared to the test their friendship was facing. "There's something else," David said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Something I haven't told you." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What?" "Elena and I, last weekend, when you were visiting your mom, we—" David struggled with the words, knowing they would irrevocably change things between them. We kissed. The confession hit Marcus like a physical blow. He stared at his friend, searching for some sign that this was a cruel joke, but David's expression held only regret and guilt. Where? The question came out as a croak. The botanical gardens. We were walking, talking about her family back in Colombia, and she started crying. I was trying to comfort her, and it just happened. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sound that made several nearby students look up from their books. I need some air. He walked out of the coffee shop without looking back, leaving David alone with the weight of his confession and the growing certainty that their friendship might not survive this storm after all. Outside, the first snow of the season had begun to fall, covering the familiar campus in a blanket of white that made everything look different, foreign. Marcus walked without direction, his breath coming in sharp puffs as he tried to process what David had told him. The kiss changed everything. It wasn't just about feelings anymore, but about betrayal, about secrets kept, about lines crossed. As he wandered through the increasingly heavy snowfall, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking away from more than just a coffee shop conversation. He was walking away from the person who had been his anchor, his constant, his chosen brother, and he wasn't sure either of them knew how to find their way back. Elena noticed the change immediately. Marcus, who had always greeted her with his signature warm smile and enthusiastic wave across campus, now offered only polite nods before hurrying in the opposite direction. David, meanwhile, seemed to be drowning in guilt, his usual thoughtful conversation replaced by distracted silences and anxious glances. The breaking point came during a particularly difficult seminar on Latin American literature. Professor Williams had assigned a group project analyzing the themes of love and betrayal in 100 Years of Solitude, and by some cruel twist of fate, Elena found herself partnered with both Marcus and David. Their first meeting at the library was excruciating. Marcus arrived 15 minutes late, his hair disheveled from the wind, while David sat rigid in his chair, his notebook filled with meticulous notes that he clutched like a shield. Elena tried to maintain normalcy, but the tension between her two friends was so thick she felt like she was suffocating. I think we should focus on the circular nature of the narrative, David suggested, his voice carefully measured. The way Garcia Marquez shows how patterns of love and loss repeat through generations. Sure, Marcus replied curtly, not meeting David's eyes. Whatever you think is best. Eleanor watched this exchange with growing frustration. These were the same two men who had once finished each other's sentences, who had shared inside jokes and easy laughter. Now they could barely manage civil conversation. Okay, stop, she said finally, closing her copy of the novel with more force than necessary. Both men looked at her in surprise. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I'm tired of feeling like I'm in the middle of some Cold War I don't understand. Marcus and David exchanged a loaded glance, the first direct eye contact they had made in weeks. Elena. It's not, David started, but she held up her hand. Don't tell me it's nothing. I can see it, feel it. Whatever this is about, it's affecting all of us, and I deserve to know what's happening. The silence that followed stretched until Eleanor wondered if either of them would speak. Finally, Marcus took a deep breath and looked directly at her. We're both in love with you, he said simply, and it's destroying our friendship. Eleanor felt the words hit her like a physical force. She had suspected that both men might have feelings for her, but hearing it stated so plainly, seeing the pain in Marcus's eyes and the shame in David's posture, made it real in a way that left her speechless. David kissed me last weekend, Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the obvious cost of the words. He told me yesterday, so now you know everything. Elena turned to David, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the library stacks. Is that true? David nodded miserably. I didn't plan it. It just happened, and I should have told Marcus immediately. I should have told you both that it was a mistake. Was it? Eleanor asked quietly. A mistake? David's silence was answer enough. Eleanor stood up from the table, her mind reeling. She walked to the tall windows that overlooked the campus quad, where students were building snowmen and having snowball fights, their laughter carrying faintly through the glass. Everything looked normal out there, peaceful, while inside this library, her world was shifting on its axis. I need to tell you both something, she said without turning around. Something I should have said weeks ago. Marcus and David waited, their entire futures hanging on whatever words would come next. I care about both of you, deeply. Marcus, you make me laugh in ways I never thought possible. You show me joy in the simplest moments, and your enthusiasm for life is contagious. David, you challenge me intellectually and emotionally. Our conversations make me think about the world differently, and I feel understood in a way I've never experienced before. She turned to face them, and both men saw tears in her eyes. But I can't be the reason you lose each other. I won't be. Elena, Marcus started, but she shook her head. No, let me finish. Watching you two, seeing what this is doing to your friendship, it's breaking my heart. Do you understand what you have? Do you realize how rare it is to find someone who truly knows you, who's been there through everything, who loves you unconditionally? She looked between them, her voice gaining strength. I've never had that. My family moved around so much when I was growing up that I never had the chance to form those deep, lasting bonds. What you two have is precious, and I won't be responsible for destroying it. David removed his glasses and wiped his eyes. So what are you saying? Elena took a shaky breath. I'm saying that I'm removing myself from this equation. I'm transferring to a different literature section, and I think we should all take some space from each other. Elena, no, Marcus said, standing up. That's not fair to you. You shouldn't have to change your life because we're acting like idiots. And you shouldn't have to lose your best friend because you both fell for the same girl, she replied firmly. Some things are more important than romance, and what you two have, what you're about to throw away, is one of them. She gathered her books, her hands trembling slightly. Figure out how to forgive each other. Remember why you became friends in the first place. And maybe someday, when you've repaired what's broken between you, we can all be friends again. Elena walked away from the table, leaving Marcus and David alone with the wreckage of their assumptions and the echo of her words. As she disappeared, between the library stacks, both men realized that the unexpected turn in their story wasn't going to be about winning or losing Elena's heart. It was going to be about whether they could find their way back to each other. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the campus in pristine white as if the world itself was offering a fresh start. Whether Marcus and David would take it remained to be seen. 3 weeks passed in miserable silence. Marcus threw himself into his economics coursework with an intensity that worried his roommate, while David haunted the library like a ghost, writing poetry he would never show anyone. Elena kept her word. She transferred to a different section and seemed to have vanished from their daily lives, though both men found themselves looking for her in every crowd, listening for her laughter in every conversation. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening when David found Marcus sitting alone in their old coffee shop, staring at an untouched cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. David had been avoiding this place for weeks, but tonight, driven by a loneliness that felt like drowning, he had come here anyway. For several minutes, they sat at separate tables, each pretending the other wasn't there. The irony wasn't lost on neither of them. They were acting like strangers in the place where they had spent countless hours planning their futures, sharing their dreams, being the best friends they had always been. Finally, David gathered his courage and walked over to Marcus's table. "Can I sit?" Marcus looked up, and David was shocked by what he saw. His friend had lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually perfectly styled hair looked like he had been running his hands through it for hours. "It's a free country," Marcus said quietly, gesturing to the empty chair. David sat down, and for a moment they simply looked at each other, really looked, for the first time since that terrible morning when everything had fallen apart. "You look like hell," David said. "You're not exactly glowing yourself," Marcus replied, and for just a second David caught a glimpse of his friend's old humor. They sat in silence again, but this time it felt different, less hostile, more exhausted. "I miss you," David said suddenly, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I miss my best friend." Marcus closed his eyes. "I miss you too. But I don't know how to get past this, David. You kept it from me. The kiss, your feelings, all of it. For the first time in 15 years, you lied to me." "I didn't lie," David protested, then caught himself. "Okay, maybe I did. By omission. But I was scared, Marcus. I was terrified of exactly what ended up happening, that it would destroy us. So instead you decided to what? Hope I wouldn't notice? Hope I'd just give up and walk away?" David flinched at the accusation. "I don't know what I was thinking. I was selfish and stupid and—" Spring arrived early that year, melting away the harsh winter that had frozen more than just the campus grounds. Marcus and David had spent the intervening months rebuilding their friendship, carefully, deliberately, with the kind of intention that comes from nearly losing something precious. They established new boundaries, new ways of communicating, and most importantly, a pact of radical honesty that left no room for the secrets that had nearly destroyed them. Elena watched their reconciliation from a distance, unable to suppress the warm feeling that spread through her chest whenever she saw them together again, laughing at Marcus's terrible jokes, engaging in their passionate debates about everything from literature to basketball, simply existing in the easy harmony that had always defined their friendship. She had kept her distance as promised, but that didn't mean she hadn't noticed. The campus wasn't that large, and she found herself observing them in the dining hall, in the library, walking across the quad with the familiar synchronized step that spoke of years of walking together. They looked like themselves again, and she was surprised by how much relief that brought her. The unexpected invitation came on a warm April afternoon, delivered by David with nervous formality that reminded her of their first awkward conversations in literature class. "Elena," he said, approaching her table in the campus center where she was grading papers for her work-study job. Could we talk? Marcus and I have something we'd like to say to you." She looked up from the freshman essays on Romeo and Juliet, ironic given the circumstances, and studied David's face. He looked different than he had in the winter, lighter somehow, more settled in his own skin. She asked. "Marcus is waiting outside. We hoped you might give us a few minutes, just to talk." Elena considered this. She had missed them both more than she cared to admit. The easy friendship she had begun to build with each of them had left a void in her social life that she hadn't quite known how to fill. But more than that, she was curious. The way David was looking at her, nervous but not desperate, hopeful but not entitled, suggested that whatever they wanted to say might be worth hearing. "All right," she said, gathering her papers. "But just a few minutes." Marcus was indeed waiting outside, leaning against an oak tree that was just beginning to bud with new leaves. When he saw her emerge with David, his face lit up with a genuine smile, not the charming, practiced one she remembered from their early flirtations, but something more authentic and warm. "Elena," he said, straightening up, "thank you for agreeing to talk to us." She gestured to a nearby bench, and the three of them sat down with Elena in the middle, a position that might have felt awkward months ago, but now seemed natural. like she was the bridge between two parts of a whole. "We owe you an apology," Marcus began. "Both of us, for putting you in an impossible situation, for making you feel like you had to choose between us or remove yourself entirely from our lives." "You were right about what we had," David continued, "about how rare real friendship is. We almost threw away 15 years of brotherhood because we were too immature to handle our feelings properly." Elena listened, noting the way they spoke, not in turns exactly, but in harmony, each picking up where the other left off in a way that reminded her of the connection she had initially admired. "We've learned some things about ourselves these past few months," Marcus said. "Things we probably should have figured out a long time ago." "Like what?" Elena asked, genuinely curious. David and Marcus exchanged a look, not the loaded, competitive glances of the winter, but something warm and conspiratorial. "Like the fact that I was so busy trying to be the guy who could win your heart that I forgot to just be myself," Marcus said. "I got caught up in competing with David instead of just enjoying getting to know you. And I was so insecure about whether I was interesting enough or worthy enough that I turned every interaction into a test I had to pass," David added. "I wasn't falling in love with you. I was falling in love with the idea that someone like you could care about someone like me." Elena absorbed this, turning their words over in her mind. "And now? Now we know something we should have known all along," Marcus said. "That friendship, real friendship, isn't about competition or proving yourself. It's about choosing to care about someone's well-being as much as your own. And that includes your well-being," David added, looking directly at Elena. "We were so focused on what we wanted that we forgot to consider what you wanted, what you needed, what would make you happy." "So what do you want now?" Elena asked. Marcus and David looked at each other and smiled, the kind of smile that shared history and mutual understanding. "We want to be your friends," David said simply. "Both of us, if you'll have us." "We want to rebuild what we had before everything got complicated," Marcus added. "The three of us together, supporting each other, enjoying each other's company, without all the romantic drama." Eleanor felt something warm and bright bloom in her chest. "You mean that? Both of you are okay with just being friends?" "More than okay," Marcus said firmly. "These past months, watching David and I find our way back to each other, I've realized that the kind of love I felt for you, the romantic kind, it was real, but it wasn't what I needed most. What I needed most was to remember how to be a good friend to both of you. Plus," David added with a grin that was pure mischief, "there's something we should probably tell you." Elena raised an eyebrow. "What?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a photo from the previous weekend. David, arm in arm with a petite redhead Elena didn't recognize, both of them laughing at something off-camera. "David met someone," Marcus explained. "Her name is Rebecca. She's in his Victorian literature class, and she thinks his terrible poetry is actually profound." "It's not terrible," David protested, but he was blushing. "And she doesn't think it's profound. She just gets it." Elena looked between them, feeling something click into place. "You're happy," she said to David. "Really happy." "I am," David admitted. "For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with exactly the people I'm supposed to be with." "What about you?" Elena asked Marcus. "Anyone special in your life?" Marcus shrugged, but his smile was content. "I'm learning to be happy with myself first. Turns out that's harder than I thought it would be, but more important too." Elena stood up from the bench and looked at both of them. These two men who had inadvertently taught her so much about loyalty, about the difference between love and possession, about the courage it takes to choose friendship over ego. "I would love to be your friend," she said. "Both of your friend, but I have one condition." Name it, Marcus said immediately. The next time either of you falls for someone, you talk to each other about it first, before it becomes a big, dramatic mess. David and Marcus exchanged a look and burst out laughing. Deal, they said in unison. As they walked back toward campus together, Elena between Marcus and David like she belonged there, she realized that the unexpected ending to their story wasn't about romance at all. It was about the discovery that some bonds, the ones built on genuine care, mutual respect, and the willingness to grow, are stronger than passion, more lasting than romantic love, and more precious than winning. The three of them had found something better than a love triangle. They had found a friendship that could weather storms, learn from mistakes, and emerge stronger on the other side. And that, Elena thought as she listened to Marcus and David debate the merits of their favorite baseball teams while including her in their easy banter, was the most unexpected happy ending of all.